Here we go. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Austin Women's Investing Group. This is our September 2024 meeting. For those of you who haven't been here before, the Austin Women's Investing Group kind of operates under a pretty simple mission, which is to get a bunch of women together in a room or a virtual room and talk about money and finance and investing. So we have been around since 2011. We try to have a meeting every month or so on a range of topics related to finance and investing. And today we're doing a financial planning roundtable, which these are always my favorite meetings because you never know what questions people are going to ask about or what topics we're going to get to discuss. But for those of you who haven't been to an Austin Women's Investing Group meeting before, one of the things we really pride ourselves on is it being sorry, I thought someone was joining, was one of the things we pride ourselves on is it really being an interactive experience. Kacie is here to kind of lead us through a discussion and moderate a discussion. But one of the best things about the Austin Women's Investing Group is what you learn from the other people in the group. So certainly as topics come up, this is the space to ask the questions. There like literally is no such thing as a dumb question. No one has ever asked a dumb question in this group since 2011. All questions are welcome. And also, if you know the answer, or if you have some insight, or if you have something you would like to share in response to the question, that is how we learn. So please feel free to unmute yourself or respond in the chat, because that's what the group is all about. I am Sarah Glakus. I am one of the founders of the Austin Women's Investing Group. By day, I am also the founder of a firm called Black Barn Financial. We're financial advisors and planners located here in Austin. Lori Watts is here. She's one of the co-organizers of the group, and she has led several meetings on different topics, which is always wonderful. She'll be helping monitor the chat. So if people are dropping questions into the chat, Lori and I will be monitoring that so that we can either stop Kacie or aggregate questions and make sure we pivot to a different topic. And Kacie Swartz, CFP, is here. Kacie is actually my partner at Black Barn. We've almost spent 2 years together as business partners, but we've known each other for almost a decade. And not coincidentally, but I don't know, like a wonderful stroke of luck, Kacie and I met through the Austin Women's Investing Group, where she came to a meeting, and she was so outspoken in that meeting. It was so amazing. And I was like, I have to know this woman better. She's so smart and so funny. And that's how we got to know each other. And then we kept in touch. And then we eventually became business partners. So to that end, Kacie and I working for Black Barn and being professionals, I do have to give a quick disclosure here that nothing in this group is intended to be individualized investing advice. When Kacie and I are here, or if there are other professionals who are in the group, certainly we're here to offer our opinions and the things that we know, but we're not offering you advice. So if you have a question that you need advice on, hire a professional, whether it's financial advice, investment advice, legal advice, tax advice. You have to hire a professional. So we are definitely here to share everything that we know, but we're not here to give advice. So we've never had a problem with that, but still always remember, oh, Kacie even made it slide. Awesome, great. So to that end, let's go ahead and jump into the topic, which is financial planning. Kacie, you wanna take it away?
Yes. All right, guys, I really appreciate everybody joining us on a absolutely freaking gorgeous Saturday afternoon in September, which is when Austin's second summer begins to dwindle, and it's only like 98 degrees instead of 110, right? So I really appreciate your time. And what I am hoping that we are going to do today is two parallel things. So first of all, logistically, technically, practically, I want to answer and or as a group mind meld about whatever financial planning topics are kind of like at the top of your brain. However, the second parallel thing is continuing a discussion that I have had off and on with pretty much everybody I know about what it is in our society that teaches women specifically to be scared of money. And I'm going to pause there because when I say scared of money, I mean thinking that money is like understanding how your finances work is mysterious or best left to experts, or you're going to mess it up. And if you mess it up, it is unretrievable. That one I think is one of the things that is not true. And I would like to reinforce to you that it's not true. And so that's part of what I would like to kind of bring up with everybody is, where does this come from? How do we stop it? What can we do to fix it in ourselves as grown-ups? And how do we stop it for our kids? Right? So, just solving the world one afternoon at a time. Okay. So anyhoodle, the reason I put Elwoods on here is because of that very topic, right? It's not hard. It's complicated. It's very, there's lots of different decision trees that you can go down because everything has sometimes kind of an answer. And it depends kind of an answer because it's very, very individual. And there is frequently a point where the answers are, for you in particular, better, but not best, right? So I'll get into that a little bit later, but that's one of the things, is that a lot of this is all subjective. And so I want to just reinforce to everybody that this stuff's not hard. It's just sometimes it's a little overwhelming. Okay. Well, as Sarah mentioned, I am her partner at Blackbarn Financial. I have been at Blackbarn Financial since right around Christmas of 22, which was a wonderful Christmas present to me to join Blackbarn Financial and the team there. But I have been a certified financial planner since 2012, and I've been working directly with clients since then. Before that, I worked in investment management and a mutual fund company. I worked with a whole lot of financial advisors. So I've seen the good ones, I've seen the bad ones. I can help you find the difference. And I've been kind of rattling around in various parts of financial services since the year 2000, which is so depressing and yet also wonderful because I can share all of these experiences with all of you. And I don't have to fax anything, which is a real upgrade since 2000. Okay. Pause. Questions? Okay, great. Like Sarah said, nothing in the group is specific advice for you in particular, Jane, the investor, or Kacie, the investor. This is all very generalized kind of stuff. If you do need specific help, please do seek out the right professional for the type of help you need. And if you don't know which type of professional you need, please put it in the chat and we will definitely get to it. Like Leora has said, the costs associated with human financial advisors and the different types of support you can get. That's a great one. Let's get to that. I'm actually going to write that down. Different types. And the cash that they cost. Okay, great. All right, important disclosures. Once again, I'm doing my very best. I'm trying to be accurate. If I make mistakes, it's truly just an accident, and please double check anything I say against other professionals. These opinions are all just mine, especially when we're getting into some very specific question kind of stuff. If anybody has those, I will give you my best advice, but it's not specific, right? It's not tailored to you. I'm never going to tell you to buy an individual security or not buy an individual security. That's just not what I do. And also we can't do that here. If we talk about performance or investment returns, those are past performance numbers. Nobody can guarantee what your investment portfolio will return in the future. Okay. And if you're expecting to get a higher return, be prepared that you're also going to take on a greater risk for loss. And we can also even talk about what that really means when in the investment world. Okay. Alrighty. I'm going to pause for a second. Questions? All right, Leora's got another one here. I found the financial planning support bundled It's limited to what a CPA offers. Exactly. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Leora. And we've had a few folks join us since we started. I just want to remind everybody, you're more than welcome to stay off mic and off camera if you would like, but I would also happily let you type in or be on camera if you would prefer. Okay. So next. This to me is the main thing that I'm not sure everybody knows. The part about financial planning includes your investment portfolio, but it is not limited to your investment portfolio. And therefore, if you have investments, if you are saving and putting your savings dollars into the stock market, that's awesome, but that is not a complete financial plan. Okay. The financial plan it incorporates the investment portfolio because that's one of the ways that we build income and build wealth to be used later. But financial planning is a holistic overview of all of the parts of your life impacted by money. And of course, we live in capitalism. So our lives are marbled with money. It is insidious. It is everything. It is everywhere. So what I want to do with people, and the thing that I think is so important about reviewing your financial plan, is creating a sense of safety by covering your basics like insurances, having an insurances as in health, as in property, as in disability, as in life, like various types, right? And those are all sold by different types of agents usually, which you may or may not know that. I do not sell any of those, so I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I just wanted you to know that. And then also your wills and estate kind of stuff. So you should have a will if you have very specific plans for what should happen with your money after you're gone. You need trusts. If you have minor children, you might need a trust. You need guardianship paper. If you care what happens to you at the end of your life, then you definitely need that all written down in your end of life documents, perhaps powers of attorney, yada, 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 right? So there's so many different parts of financial planning. But the main thing is, and the funnest part to me, is the like daydreaming part of what you want your life to be. So I want to pause for a second. Does anybody want to put that in the chat? Like, if you didn't have to earn money for your day job, what would you be doing instead?
I was just talking to someone about this. By the way, I was the advisor and I was talking to my clients who were the clients about this, but I was saying that if I answered that question, I kind of have this dream that I would be sitting in like white linen, almost like Buddhists wear, like if they're in training, like in a monastery, and I would read books all day and putter around in my garden. So that's like the life I envision for myself. Also, as Lori knows, because I think I mentioned this to her once, I also think I would like to have my encore career be the person at Mr. Car Wash who brings people into the car wash and sprays the front of their car and waves at them. Like you bring them onto the conveyor belt and you wave at them and spray their car. Like those people always seem so nice, like they're having like a pretty good time. And so those are the things I envision myself doing. And having the freedom to do that, right?
The chat pretty much all agrees that we should all be traveling more. Lori is going to live in Hawaii. Love that. Jessica is going to rescue dachshunds, and I love that. Jessica, have you been to the weenie dog races in Buda? And can you join me in a commercial for how much fun it is? Leora's going to play more basketball, read, visit her sister, live near a warm, clean sea. Anyone in particular that we should all be researching and trying to visit? Because they are the warm ones. If the water's not moving enough, it doesn't feel that clean. So I want to know that. More pickleball, more entrepreneurship. I love all of these things. I think that I would want to like volunteer to hold babies at the hospital. I don't even know if that's still a thing people do, but I feel like and maybe it was an urban legend, but I feel like at one point there was a volunteer job where you could go to the hospital and hold babies in the NICU. And I love holding babies and I love giving them back. So that would be an amazing job. Okay, I got totally distracted and I am very much enjoying everybody's daydreams. And the thing that is the most fun about my job is that I take these plans, building a dachshund rescue, living in the Caribbean, rescuing dachshunds in the Caribbean. What I do is I quantify these things. I say, how much does it cost? What kind of insurances do you need? How do you get there? What do you have now that helps you get there? That's what financial planning does. And so anything that we make up that's super crazy, and I've had some really fun projects where I've got to help people plan for some very exciting alternatives to their day jobs. Those things can all be real. Like none of this has to be a daydream forever. And so a lot of us, it's simply, I just want to travel more. I just want to sit still more. I don't want a boss. Great. Let's put the numbers behind it, because most likely you have already been saving. You probably have some income resources. How much does this new life cost? What happens if it all goes to zero? How do you rebound for that? So we look for what are the pitfalls? How do we protect against them? That's where things like the disability insurance, the health insurance, the wills and estates come in. And how do we prepare and how do we get there in the most efficient manner? That's where your taxes and your savings come in, right? So that's the investment management portion. That's a part of your financial plan. And then who needs a plan? Well, of course, I'm going to say everybody, right? However, the plans don't have to be super detailed. If you like what you do, you are pretty sure you're going the right direction. It doesn't need to be specified yet. Great, you're doing a great job. If you are coming up to a major life transition, things like I'm having a kid, my kids are leaving college, high school and going to college. My mom is fading and she's probably going to have to either come live with me or move into a facility. And oh my God, how much is that going to cost? And do I have to go back to Kansas to do it? I don't want to. Okay. So that one's very personal. I am not going back to Kansas. So these are the things that we see as major transition moments that can bring the urgency forward, right? Like financial planning is always important, but the urgency is not always there until something is right around the corner or you're right in the middle of it. And sometimes I've worked with folks who are coming to me because their emergencies are ongoing, things like death and divorces. But also there's really fun ones to plan for. Like, I won the lottery, or I reached the rule of 80 and I get to leave my state job that has been slowly crushing me for the last 30 years. Like whatever it is, we can work together on those things. But also you can plan those yourself. You don't necessarily need me to get this started, right? Okay. Questions. I'm going to pause frequently because I want this to be a discussion. So does anybody have questions or want to share any of their thoughts and or experiences with financial advisors or financial planners who have either made you feel very empowered about this or have totally crapped on your dreams? I have had both. And I'm trying to keep it clean today. So I said a mildly dirty word instead of the one I was thinking.
And we do probably have a small enough group that if you're able to unmute yourself and chat, I think that we could probably take turns doing that.
Absolutely. Oh my God, Leora, are we paying you for this? I love it. Yeah, Carlotta Garza Kilcullen was our speaker back in June. She was awesome. She is a local estate planning attorney. She's super approachable. She really gave us a fantastic overview of what you're looking for. And if you do need that service, she's fantastic. So can't recommend her enough. But also if you already know somebody, the most important thing is just to get that done. Sarah, your question about the rule of 80, it is when you are a public worker, a lot of the different state agencies here in Texas, you combine how long you've worked there plus your age. And once those things equal the number 80, then you can receive your retirement pension.
Hey, Case, I have a quick question for you that maybe is a little bit more general.
Mhm.
I find that both for myself personally and for clients professionally, I think one of the misconceptions, or maybe one of the barriers to doing like some pretty serious financial planning, is like the overwhelmingness of it all.
No kidding, right?
Do you think it's that on the scale of hammer it all out in 3 to 5 meetings with maybe like a large fee outlay with a financial planner, but just hammer out like a big comprehensive plan on one side of the spectrum versus bringing it down into little teeny tiny parts that maybe will extend the process, that maybe make it a little bit more manageable?
Mhm.
Like, where do you fall on like the right strategy for undertaking, like putting together your financial plan? Is it hammer it out, do it all at once, or
Mhm.
do it a little bit at a time over a long period of time?
See, this is why it's a problem, because of course the answer is it depends. My default answer is make it manageable, like eat the elephant one bite at a time. However, if you are a do-it-yourselfer type person, the type of person that is attending a AWIG meeting on a Saturday afternoon, by the way, then you may not need somebody to hold your hand to get every single step done. You might want the double check of pay somebody for 3 to 5 meetings, have them review what you already have created, have them help you maybe like adjust your roadmap a little bit, and then come back in for checkups. And you can do that. The National Association of Professional Financial Advisors, NAPFA, is a fee-only network, or a network of fee-only advisors, people like Sarah and myself, but not just us, like thousands of people across the country who are fiduciaries and who will work with folks to try and create a good financial plan. Not everybody offers the short-term engagements, like they don't always work with folks on a limited scope like that, but there's lots of people that do. The XY Planning Network is another place to look for that. The Garrett Planning Network. There's lots of places to look for this kind of wingman approach. That's one of the ways I've used, one of the analogies I've used in the past, to just make sure that what you have created is doing what you want it to do. And or as you're coming into a major transition and you've already done all your own research, you just want a second opinion to make sure there's not something major you missed, you can certainly do that. I feel like a lot of times, just because financial world is just like any other bureaucracy, this stuff takes for frickin' ever sometimes. And you sometimes just have to wait for things to happen. Like if you're waiting for your RSUs to vest and it's going to be 6 months, like sometimes it's really handy to engage an advisor for a longer period of time, because your priorities might like mildly shift, or you might achieve something and then realize, you know, I really thought that this was my priority, but it turns out this is my priority. So I feel like having that flexibility can be super handy. What does everybody else think? I wish the chat showed like when everybody is typing, because I'm hoping that's what's happening.
Well, maybe we could.
Oh, someone else is going.
I'm muting myself, so go ahead, whoever just started talking.
Oh, this is Leora. Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, well, this is kind of what I think. I don't know if you're going to answer my question later or
The
um
money part, yes.
okay, yeah, okay, so you're going to answer it later, then I can just leave.
No, let's do it now too. Let's do
Oh.
both. So specifically, what would you like to know?
So yeah, I think I'm probably not. This is just in the future. Like I want to just consider what the cost difference is and what the value is that I'm getting. So I'm currently have a partially managed portfolio, and the managed portfolio comes with, a financial advisor. And the immediate comparison that I was looking at is, one of the reasons why I have them is because it's to make sure my money gets invested while I'm doing other things, during,
Mhm.
the working hours of the day and stuff. Um, and but there's, technological advancements, they're more and they're more common and more sophisticated robo advisors. And I know that
Mhm.
under the hood, I mean, it's not a secret that this group is also using robo advisors just with a human touch, right? And then
Mhm.
one of the reasons why they have an entry amount that you have to have for your portfolio is because of the human touch part. So looking at other robo advisors, they offer different levels of, I guess, human advisor, either on demand or for a different fee or something like that. And my experience with mine has been that they can answer maybe 50% of the questions that I have. Because most of my questions are generally like, what are the tax implications of this? Short-term gains, long-term gains, which is this going to push me into the next, bracket, or like how, like I just care about basically tax implications, and have very little, because this one isn't even that flexible, and very little questions around the investment side. So I'm
Mhm.
thinking about if I went fully away from them and so I was consider what the human support is, um, like what that alternative could look like. Because like for example, right now, part of the reason why my comparison is like, to me they're very light is because when I go to my mom, who's a CPA, she can answer like all of my questions.
That's exactly it.
And
Yeah,
she's
that's what I was
doing
going to
tax.
say. CPAs. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Keep
Oh, and
going.
I was just saying she's doing my taxes, but I also know that with my mom, she has specialties in tax. I forget what the specialty is called, but in tax planning and estate planning, and I think securities license. So I know
Oh,
that,
okay, cool.
yeah, I know that like even with CPAs, like they can't all necessarily help you with the same thing. Same with financial planners, they can't necessarily help you with every single thing. So that's what I was wondering. What are like the
Mhm.
main things, the main supports if I want to like self-manage? Because I would personally would, like you said, I'd want someone to review certain things when, life transitions and, stuff.
Mhm. When I think about like the different professionals that you could engage for your financial life and for all of the different parts of financial planning, one of another analogy that I'll sometimes use is like different healthcare providers. And I think of the financial planner as your primary care physician. And I think of your CPA as, for example, your dentist, right? Your dentist is awesome. They know everything there is to know about teeth. They cannot fix your, you know, ingrown toenails. Whereas the same is true of your personal or of your primary care physician, right? Like they can tell you when there's something wrong with your teeth. They can tell you when there's something wrong with your feet. They can fix a lot of those things, but they can't give you a root canal, right? And they can't necessarily do foot surgery. So that's where they'll call in other professionals. When you are using a robo advisor or a professional service that includes a financial person, but they're not specifically saying they're doing financial planning, a lot of the times you're going to get answers that only have to do with your investment portfolio. That's what I've run across with various large brokerage firms like Schwab and Vanguard and Fidelity and Betterment and some of those different companies, that they will come with a CFP as part of the package. But if you are asking that person questions that are not related to the investments themselves, that person may not be able to help you. So I think that that's where occasionally paying a tax professional can be really useful. And maybe it's not something that you do every single year, but in the years where you have those kind of questions, it might be worth engaging a tax professional. And the thing that I personally have run into, and everybody please pipe in on this one, tax professionals in my experience have not been the most proactive people. They're not the ones like shooting me an email saying, hey, Kacie, have you made your Roth contributions? Or, hey, Kacie, a health savings account is going to save you extra money. You should probably sign up for it during open enrollment. They don't do that unless I'm proactive and have a meeting with them and like force the issue. What has everybody else's experience been? Has anybody else been able to get their tax people to really like come to you with tax savings ideas?
I would say no. I think that's a really good point. Usually it's me asking questions or making an appointment to ask questions that isn't in tax, isn't in the 3-month tax prep time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a really good point too, is that during like February to April is not the time for these questions, nor is September 1st to October 15th. However, what I do like to do is for folks who are in distribution mode, which means they have required minimum distributions from their IRAs, or they have a large amount of appreciated stock that they might want to give away as charitable donations during the holiday season. With those folks, I'll try and have a tax planning meeting with their accountant sometime after October 15th, which is the extension, the tax extension filing deadline for those of you who have never dropped the ball enough to have to file an extension. That's the deadline. And then for those folks who are more in the accumulation phase, like 401k planning, HSA planning, all that kind of stuff, then I will try and have those meetings with the accountants right after the April filing deadline. So sometime in like May, right? Because if you're going to increase your 401k contributions, then you want to get it done as early in the tax year as possible. Or if there's a change to your open enrollment so that you can switch from a health insurance plan that doesn't have a health savings account to one that does, then you want to like know that before you go into your open enrollment period. And for most folks, those are either summer or fall. So anyway, those are just like some rules of thumb things. Those are certainly not universal. Okay, any other thoughts before we move on to the different components of your financial plan? Anybody? Okay. So I kind of just touched on these a little bit, and a lot of these are going to be familiar to you. What I would really love for everybody to do is look at this beautiful Simon pie chart, which for those of you who are not 40 years old, Simon was a game that we used to play where the lights would blink and you would have to hit them in a repeating pattern, and it was super fun. For the 80s, it was super fun. Everything's relative. Anyway, okay, so looking at this list, like please look at this and see if there's any one particular thing that hits you and put it in the chat.
What you mean affects you?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Or like you're the most interested in. Yeah, that's a good question. So like if you're looking at this and you're like, ooh, career choices, I want to hear more about that. Or, oh, taking care of elders, I want to hear more about that. Or just growing your wealth. Yes, I want that. I don't have the Powerball numbers. I would share them, but I don't have them. The reason I brought this chart and I did my own little brainstorm of what to put on here is because I'm trying to, again, reinforce to you guys that like financial planning and financial decisions are marbled through our lives, right? So I would say things that we're all just going about our day, they have financial planning consequences, or they have financial planning elements. So for example, my 2017 RAV4 is an absolute workhorse. Toyota does it right, like it's still moving and grooving. However, I now have a 4 and 6-year-old who are mildly disgusting. And so the interior is getting pulled apart by these feral children, and it doesn't look amazing. And so whenever I fill up the tank and I'm getting gas and I'm standing on the outside looking in at all of the disgustingness, I think to myself, like, should I get a car? And if I get a car, what kind of car? Should I get an EV? And then if I get an EV and I install the thing at my house, yada, yada, yada. You see how these things spiral, right? Not usually does the spiraling include, should I get rid of the children? That part, they're kind of always going home with me, because they do have a tax deduction. Okay, over here on the chat, we have portfolio rebalancing, good one. Growing our wealth, love it. Taking care of elders, taxes and saving. Okay, great. All right, so a lot of this is, again, going to be kind of like spiderwebbed into all of the different topics, but we can go through these. Oh, Cobra. Okay, Leora, when do you need Cobra, or are you just considering leaving your job and deciding like what Cobra covers?
I'm already out of my job.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you're on Cobra.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is everybody familiar with Cobra? It's like the ability when you leave a corporate job to maintain your corporate health insurance as long as you pay your own premiums that you were previously paying, but also the employers have. So what's the question?
Okay, so while I was employed, I remember that like HR would always say that there's the normal time to like make your elections for your plan, and then there are qualifying life events. So my question is, so right now there was a severance package, and part of it included paying for Cobra for a period of time. Does that compensation where the company is paying Cobra, and when it ends, does that qualify as a life event? Like
It does. Usually it does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as long as they're paying your Cobra premiums, like, keep it up, right? However, I recently spoke with a independent health insurance agent, and he was telling me that people are frequently surprised these days about how cheap the ACA can be. So, and how like good the coverage can be. So
What's ACA?
that's Obamacare, the
Oh.
Affordable Care Act.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so once the part where your employer is paying for it runs out, certainly, look into
Awesome. Okay.
that. Yeah, that's a good one. Lisa M, mortgages and refinancing. Do you already have a mortgage? Are you getting a mortgage?
Yes.
How amazing. Yeah, what's up?
So I bought my house last October.
Okay.
7% interest rate. And the Fed's just cut interest rates, and I'm already starting to get some dubious offers in the mail, but I'm wondering if I should. I heard talk that they're going to probably cut again by the end of the year, and I'd rather, I'm trying to decide whether to wait on this and wait till, I can do, I'd like to get the rate down, but I also want to wait until it makes sense. And so generally, do you all I don't know if you can say this, but do you all think they're going to cut rates again this year? And would it be smart to, obviously no one knows, and would it be smart to wait to look at refinancing?
I think so first of all, if you bought the house in October of last year, you are aware, maybe you're aware, that yeah, you have to wait that 12 months before you can refinance. If and when you refinance, are you planning to take cash out of the home?
No.
Okay, because let me just pause for a second and tell everybody a terrible thing that I personally learned is that if you refinance a house here in the state of Texas and you take cash out, then you are not eligible to have a line of credit against that home until you refinance it again without taking cash out. And if anybody is a mortgage broker on this call that can explain this better than I can, I would love to hear it because it was absolutely heartbreaking to hear. But where I'm going with this for you in particular, Lisa, is that I would look into the dubious offers and the less dubious offers that you can find on like bankrate.com,
Okay.
Nerd Wallet, all of that, some online sources that
Okay.
are aggregating those for you. Because I think you certainly don't want to do a hard credit check if you're thinking about refinancing, but look into what the closing costs are. Because I think that that's the big deal maker or deal breaker on refinancing is there is a math answer of how many months it's going to take of reduced mortgage to make up for whatever your closing costs are to do this refinance.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And if you buy points and then that's going to cost a little extra, that extends the number of months and yada, yada, yada. So you have to kind of consider, are you planning to be in this house for however long it takes to get that money back? And or do you feel like you're getting a low enough rate that you can wait out first of all, the 12 months again, but then also however long it takes to get to that break point and then perhaps refinance again. I mean, I've refinanced our house that we've been in for 13 years. I've refinanced it. Like this is the third one that I had done. And this was the first one that I had done cash out, but they're awesome. I mean, refinancing is fantastic way to unlock an asset that you sometimes, we love to see the value of our homes go up, especially in Austin over the past 20 years, but you can't sell a bedroom, right? So refinancing and lines of credit and cash out refinancing, all of those things are great ways to access the money in that house. However, you want to be very well versed in like, what are the repercussions? How much am I truly paying at closing and also over the life of that loan, right?
Okay.
What does anybody else think? Anybody else have thoughts? Okay. I
was
yeah.
gonna say I was looking at this too, because I actually bought at a similar time. And there's lots of research to look this out, but I found one of the more official sources recently. There's something called the Fed dot plot, and it's where the Fed, they vote on where they think interest rates where they're gonna put rates over a timeline. I think it goes out over several years. I've definitely looked up to 2026, so that can tell you. I mean, of course, it's it's intentions kind of, and not necessarily what will happen. But if you like believe in their kind of vote and what they say that they're gonna do, then that's kind of can be an indicator of if they'll cut again. And the current plot says that they will. But it also shows that the rates are expected to go down, continue to go down even through 2026. So I think especially since you're in that situation, like personally, I would do the refinance calculation for multiple time points based on what rate you might be hoping to get at those different times. Because the thing about refinancing like in 1 year is that may make the calculation such that it wouldn't make sense for you to refinance again in another year if you really believe like rates are going to come down a whole nother point. So
That's a good point. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, because there is that like lockup, that freeze. So if you did refinance it like 5.75, but then they drop down to 5 and you can't refinance, then you might kick yourself. Sarah, did you have a thought?
Yeah, it was along the same lines of what Leora was saying. I was just looking up the Federal Reserve's mortgage rate chart, so I can drop it in the chat where it shows like how quickly mortgage rates have come down this year. And I remember, I think in a meeting that Lori had earlier this year, a meeting we had about real estate, a bunch of real estate people and mortgage experts were kind of predicting 5% by the end of the year. And I kind of poo-pooed that, but I think the at least like the average rate or one of the rates showing on this chart is 6.09. And it's come down 1% over the last quarter. It looks like the trend is for mortgage rates to continue coming down, maybe even relatively quickly. So I don't know. I think that's just interesting to know that this might not be your last best option to refi at a lower rate, just based on how fast those longer term rates are coming down.
Mm-hmm. And also run those mortgage calculators on various interest rates too, because on a real dollars basis, you might find that the difference between a 5% rate and a 5.1% rate, it may make a big difference for you depending on the size of your mortgage, but it may not, right? And so this is where like perfect is the enemy of good can come back into the story, so that you may not ever find the perfect, like the 1.9% that I know one person got back in like 2022, 21, but that person will never sell their house now, right? Because you're never going to get 1.9 again. Okay. Okay, the last one here in the chat that I just wanted to check on. Sarah, you said rebalancing. Can you tell us a little bit about what you are thinking there?
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I just want to rebalance my portfolio every year, but it still seems daunting. That's all.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. When you say you want to rebalance it, are you trying to get it back to a particular weighting?
Maybe, okay, I'll just say it from my understanding of what that means to me. I would want to make sure that my stocks are doing well, and that like my money, my savings versus my investments versus other categories is what I want it to be. Is that what that term means?
No, that's not exactly, but I think that that's what it should mean. Because the way let me repeat that to you. So basically you're saying you want to make sure that you have the right amount in super safe savings, the right amount invested, and then that those investments are doing what they're supposed to. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, then yeah, you're like 98% there. That's exactly it. The financial world definition of portfolio rebalancing is like selling some of your large cap to buy some of your small cap or something like that, based on a preset disciplined strategy. But frankly, that's not that useful to normal people. I think that you're exactly right. Making sure that you have enough in your super safe savings, especially as interest rates are coming down and my Ally account is not paying me 5.5% anymore. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not putting too much in there, but then also in your investments. So we want to just make sure that you've got the right portfolio mix to achieve the kind of growth you're trying to achieve. But also, if you have not rebalanced in a while and there's a particular portion of your investment portfolio that has had a lot of momentum, like large cap growth, for example, that part's gotten really big, well, then that can potentially mean that if that part of the stock market has a big dip, then you might be more impacted than the average. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean so impacted that you shouldn't have done it or make changes because it happened. That doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means compared to the index or compared to the average, you may be more impacted. And that's completely subjective to your experience, because if you don't plan to use that money in like 1 or 2 years, who cares? Well, not who cares, that doesn't sound right. But my point is, it doesn't impact you in the short term. You have time for those dollars to recover. And remember that even when the market's going down, if you are holding a portfolio that creates dividends or capital gains that you're reinvesting, you are creating more little soldiers in your portfolio at cheaper prices. So then when they go up again, they have these new reinforcements.
That's true. That's nice.
Yeah. Sarah is
focus
our
on that.
investment expert. Yeah, right? Okay. Anyway, so these are the basics.
Well, actually, about the rebalancing. So it sounds like, Kacie,
Yeah.
I guess my question is, what do you look at first? And it seems like you're saying first you look at the pie chart and see, has, like, say, the large cap grown larger than you want because those stocks have been successful. And then if that's true, then you look more carefully at those and try and find out which ones are the ones you want to sell, which might be the ones that are doing well because you want money to invest somewhere else, or it might be the losers. So that's like one way to approach it. Or would you look at your whole portfolio and look at all the losers first and get rid of those? Like, how do you usually approach it?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. So in that situation, I would take one step back and I would look at everything all at once. And I would look at the super safe money versus the invested money. And when I say super safe, the reason I'm mentioning it is because I want to make sure that, again, for a very personalized answer, that when I look at my cash account, my money market, my ally account, my short-term CDs, whatever it is, that there is enough money there that makes me feel safe and comfortable that if I need $20,000 or I need $5,000, whatever, I don't have to dip into my invested stocks on a completely random bad day in the stock market and take a pretty big hit, right? So again, that's all very personalized. The rule of thumb is 3 months worth of expenses if you have a 2-person household where both people are bringing in income, or 6 months worth of expenses if you have one income stream. Those are completely random. That doesn't have anything to do with how much and how much credit you can access on your credit cards or through your home loan, or how likely it is for you to lose your job, or how likely, like what kind of disability insurance you have that would cover you, God forbid something happens, yada, yada, yada. So again, very personalized. When it comes back to how do you rebalance, I'm going to have Sarah pipe in on this too, but my personal view is that the answer varies depending on what type of tax treatment those accounts have. So for example, if I'm rebalancing a regular brokerage account, the Kacie Swartz individual brokerage account that doesn't have any special tax treatment, right? It's not an IRA, it's not a Roth IRA. It's just every year I pay taxes on the dividends, the interest, and the capital gains. In that particular account, I'm going to try and sell the losers. And the reason I want to sell the losers is because I want to lock in the capital loss and I want to buy something else. The reason that I say that, that's not good English. My point is that I am an index investor, me in particular. I'm not really I'm going to buy Coke versus Pepsi kind of lady. I'm going to buy the Schwab S&P 500 versus the Fidelity S&P 500. They're going to be so generic, they are interchangeable. And therefore, I would want to lock in that loss. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah when those securities have like different qualities.
I think I'm about to go back to the basic premise of rebalancing, which is to basically like not necessarily cap, but make sure you understand the possibilities for your overall portfolio, right? That if you are if based on your risk tolerance, your portfolio is 80% stocks. And you know that the stock market can fluctuate by, down 25, up 25% in 1 year. The rebalancing part is to make sure that the risky part of your portfolio is not overwhelming the less risky part of your portfolio when times are good, because eventually things are going to turn. And so if you look at your overall portfolio and you're like, oh man, like I think I can tolerate 20% downside in my accounts, like in the aggregate, right? Like as a whole, I have $100,000. I would probably be okay if the value of my portfolio fell to $80,000. If you're in a pretty aggressive portfolio with the vast majority in stocks, you're probably okay. But if you look at your $100,000 portfolio and you're like, oh man, if that fell to $80,000, I mean, I think I would sell. I think I would just bail out and move on to something else. That means you need to sell some stocks, even if the stock market is going up. Like the fundamental purpose of rebalancing is to trick yourself into selling high and buying low, because like the basic investing premise is you want to buy low and sell high. But the selling high part is incredibly difficult. So is the buying low part. I don't want to, underestimate or overestimate how easy or difficult it is to buy low. It's very hard to buy low. We've had lots of Austin Women's Investing Group meetings during market crashes, and nobody's really in the mood for buying when the market has crashed. We all think we're going to be in the mood, and we're not. But the rebalancing part is if your 80% stocks has grown to 90% stocks, behaviorally, what most people do is they're like, I'm awesome at this.
Yeah, let's keep going.
And then when your 90% stock portfolio falls by a whole bunch in a bear market, you feel awful. Like you've gone beyond your risk tolerance. And you may be so far beyond your risk tolerance that the next downturn gets you. So I don't know if this was helpful at all, but it like kind of the more tactical pieces of what to sell is to me less important than that you have made a decision to sell and rebalance. There are some tactical pieces on being, as tax efficient as possible. Are you selling losers? Guess what? In a bull market, there aren't very many losers to sell. In a bull market, which is when the market is going up, pretty much everything looks good. And like something that you would definitely want to keep. So you start selling things that are painful to sell. Like
that bonds.
I don't know how many like stock investors are here. Like who's selling Nvidia? Who's selling Microsoft? Anybody? Like Leora, that's for you, right? Like Leora and I talk about Nvidia a whole bunch. People are not selling Nvidia because it's up like 100% over the last year, right? But maybe it should be on the table. I didn't mean to call you out, Laura, just because like
no, I'm fine. Yeah, of course, I'm still looking at it. My problem is taxes.
Right. And then some of the other pieces come in, like maybe you want to sell something but can't for tax purposes. But for Sarah's like original question of rebalancing, it's knowing yourself and always coming back to how much downside can I stomach, and making sure that your portfolio doesn't grow so aggressive during an up market that you're exposed to more downside risk when the market turns. And we don't know if it's going to be next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So it's more of a behavioral thing that you just don't end up accumulating more and more in the stocks. You don't accumulate so much that you can't tolerate a downswing. So take the stocks portion of your portfolio and cut it by 30% and then see how comfortable you would be with a portfolio of that size. So sorry, that was a very long answer to a short question. Oh, sorry about that.
No, I think that's really handy because it reinforces to me what Amy Calistri from our office said a while back. And I don't know if she made this up or if she found it embroidered on a pillow at Home Goods, which is what I should be selling. That buying stocks is research and selling stocks is emotion. Has anybody heard this before? Am I the only one that this was new information? It was so freaking good because she's absolutely right. When I'm buying something, I'm researching, I'm looking at analyst information, I'm out there doing the work. But when it's already in your portfolio, humans can anthropomorphize. How do you say that word? Anthropomorphize. Anyway, we can love inanimate objects no matter what it is, right? So even if it's like the 5 shares of Chewy's, the Mexican restaurant that I bought, I still feel like, well, that selling it has a value about me as a person. I'm selling, I'm not loyal, or I'm saying I'm not good at this, or yada, yada, yada. That's not necessarily, none of those things are true. This is all like completely heartless, as in not bad stuff, but like it should be like a robot decision, but it's not. We're humans. We always do this to ourselves. NVIDIA is up, 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 up. Why would I sell? Why would I not want to ride the train to the super top? Why don't I want to be Steve Jobs? So that's my thoughts. Okay, moving on. The point is that when we had the chat questions, almost nobody said work life. So I just want to run through this real quick. And if this sparks some questions or sparks conversation, great. Otherwise, we can motor on. It's 3:37. We have about an hour left, slightly less. Okay, work life. What I want you to know about this from a financial planning perspective is if you have a corporate job, you have a freaking treasure chest in front of you of benefits that you may or may not be taking advantage of. So if this fall, September, October, if this is the time of year where you get that email from your HR department or whoever it is that sends you the paperwork that says, hey, we're enrolling for 2025 benefits, look this over, confirm what you have, or make changes. I want you to look through that thing with a fine-tooth comb. Number one, there may be new options in there. Number two, your life may have changed since last year, and you may need different things than you needed last year. Number three, you may not have taken advantage of stuff because you didn't know what it was. So go through it, see if there's stuff in there that is super relevant to you and or a windfall that you are not already taking advantage of. Examples: the health insurance, the medical insurance, the disability insurance, the pet insurance. Like there are so many different types of insurance that you can get through work. When you have, think about this from a statistics standpoint. When you have a group of individuals and you are insuring the whole group, and if I'm the insurance company, I only have to pay if one of those people dies or is disabled out of the whole group, but they're all paying me. That's a good bet if I'm the insurance company. So death, like life insurance and disability insurance is usually cheap through the group insurance. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need to get it on your own for specific reasons or different amounts that you need, or you think you're going to leave that job and you don't want to be tied to their insurance. That's all reasons not to do it, or to take advantage of whatever their free thing is and then buy the rest on your own. Their health insurance, and I wrote in here health insurance and medical insurance. Those are the same. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, my point is a lot of different insurances will offer you a standard PPO style plan where you pay fairly low out of pocket at the doctor's office, but your monthly premiums are a little higher. And then they'll have a high deductible plan where your monthly premiums are lower, but you're on the hook for more at the doctor's office. The thing about those high deductible health plans is that they also come with a health savings account option where you can put dollars away to be spent on those out-of-pocket expenses And when you put those dollars away, they are a current year tax deduction. So this type of plan is super useful for folks who are high earners or who are on a really aggressive path to financial independence, retire early, because this is a great way to pile up cash into something that can be used to cover your medical expenses later tax-free. Any questions on that? Sometimes they're not even offered. It depends on like where you work, but still, if they are offered, at least consider it. The different types of retirement plans, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you have, basically if you're not self-employed is where I'm going with this. I say corporate job, but this can be working for the state, working for a university, whatever. A 401k, a 403b, a 457, those number thingies, those are all different parts of the tax code. That's why they're called that. So it's like section 401-K or section 403b 403-B, section 457. These are different parts of the tax code, but all of them are retirement plans that are sponsored by your employer and have decently high contribution limits, and they're all tax deferred dollars is the default. Over the past 20 years, all of these different retirement plans most of them have started offering a Roth alternative or component. So even though like this year, for example, in 2024, the contribution limit for a 401k, 403b, and 457 is $23,000 as an employee. And that's for people under 50. There's an extra if you're over 50. But anyway, my point is that money could be a straight up dollar for dollar deduction on your taxes. Or if you put it into the Roth component, then you don't get the tax deduction, but you just put $23,000 into a tax-free account that you will never pay taxes on again in your life. You can't do that at Fidelity and Schwab in your own personal traditional IRA or Roth account. Those contribution limits are only $7,000. So that's why, to me, your retirement plan is like the first thing that you fully fund because it's got a higher limit. The deferred comp, the stock options, the pensions, all of that kind of stuff. Nobody put it in the chat that they are interested, so I'm going to skip it unless somebody raises their hand now. Okay. Again, I will leave you with the idea that if you work somewhere that they offer you employee-sponsored purchase plans where you can buy your company's stock at a discount, and then after a certain amount of days, you can then sell it, that's free money, guys. I would totally do that, but that's just me. Okay, family life, kids, tax credits, minors with special needs. Anybody want to talk about that? I didn't see it in the chat, so I think we can keep going. Okay, estate planning, guardianship of those kids, wills, end-of-life documents, beneficiaries. This is one thing, like when Leora was asking about like what's the cost of these different things. Estate planning documents, they're going to range, of course. Like, of course, it always depends, right? But you can get a nice package of official documents from an attorney for like $2,000 to $4,000. And it's a fairly painless process to fill out the information that they're asking you. Who do you want to be in charge of your kids? Who do you not want to be in charge of your kids? Who's in charge of you if you're in a coma? Who's not in charge of you? Yada, 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 right? And then they put that money, or I'm sorry, they put all of those documents together. They save a copy, you have a copy, they put it in your Google Drive, whatever. I had a CD of my estate documents from 2013. And then when it was time to update them after the kids were born, I couldn't find anywhere to put the CD in a computer to actually get my estate documents out of the CD. So make sure you're staying up to date with technology, I guess is the point of that one. But the thing that I do want to remind you is that if you have accounts that have named beneficiaries, so that's going to be your life insurances, your IRAs, you can even do it on your house title. Make sure you keep those beneficiaries up to date as your life changes. So if you get divorced, don't leave your ex-husband on those accounts because those are called contract assets, which means that those accounts are going to go to whoever is named as the beneficiary but even if that's not who's named in your will. So think about that. Or like if you were giving everything to your sister, but for whatever reason, she predeceases you and you never update it, then you're going to die what they call intestate. And that means that whoever's your executor isn't going to have to go through a real pickle with the courts to try and like get your estate settled. Okay, caregiving, balancing work and family responsibilities, paying for elder care. Lori, what were your questions or thoughts? Can cars have beneficiaries? No. Lori, what were your thoughts about elder care?
I was just wondering if you had any particular advice for looking ahead. I mean, obviously you can't, make the parents manage their money. Do you set aside money to make sure that, they will be taken care of? Like, do you just have anything in general that you suggest?
Yeah, that's a great question. So number one, it's the airplane principle that you put your own mask on first, right? Like make sure you're taken care of. And I say that, but honestly, I have seen so many people like spend their retirement savings because they are taking care of other people. And once again, I have only seen women do that. I have not seen single men do that ever. However, I have seen lots of women do it, especially when it's somebody that they love a lot, like a daughter going through a divorce or a beloved mother that is not financially independent. So that's really difficult. And so one of the things that you can do is when we have people that we love that we know may not be able to take care of themselves, that's one thing that we can research before it becomes an issue. And so I would look into are your people local, Lori, or are they far away?
No, far away. And it might not be a
Yeah.
problem. It's just, I keep mulling it over.
I know I'm in the same boat. Like my family is in Kansas, my mother-in-law is in Ohio, and two things there. Like one is logistics. So when my father-in-law was fading and then eventually died, the flights to Ohio are so expensive, especially with all four of us. So that was a family planning conversation of how often is my husband going by himself? How often are all four of us going? What are the rules of when we do or don't go? Is there, because you can't like plan ahead and say, oh, he's going to have a stroke on the 15th and like flights are going to be expensive. So let's buy them now. Like we can't do that, right? So anyway, so like that part we can a little bit control in that you can set aside a budget for how much is it going to cost to travel up there? How long can you stay there if you have a corporate job where you might have to take PTO? But after, like, for example, after Jim passed, my husband stayed because Carol needed help, like literally moving stuff around in their house. She's a tiny Sicilian woman. She could not move things. So anyway, so that's the kind of thing that we can a little bit budget for. But then are our senior people going to be financially independent? You're absolutely right. There's nothing we can do there. But we can do the research on what kind of caregiving is available in their geography and what does it cost? Who do they know that's getting good care? And like, who are they using? Stuff along those lines. Like we can do as much planning as we can, but yeah, when it comes down to it, it's sometimes really difficult. Especially if they're being like super obstinate. And then I think that the mental health part comes back in of have people in your support network who are supporting you while you're supporting them. And that might be your family, but it also may be like an adult, like child of senior adults support group or like your church group or whatever. There's a million different ways to like crack that nut. I bet there's one on Meetup. But like right now, it's for me, it's just me and my two sisters complaining to each other on a group chat. So everybody's different. Does anybody else have like experience with this?
I don't have experience with this, but it's something that I've been thinking about since my parents have also been going through mental health issues and physical health issues. And also, my brother has a family, so I would probably become a caretaker of one of my parents, which is unfortunate because I do not make as much money as my brother. And so it's something else that I'm thinking about. And so they live in Florida. So it's interesting that you're talking about the different states situation. And I'm like, okay, so I would probably have to think about medical care being the most important thing. And like, how easy is that to switch? Like, it's Medicaid. I don't even know these terms yet, like Medicaid, right? I would have to think about, and I don't know. That's just something I'm thinking about because I don't want to move to Florida. I hate Florida.
I know, man. I'm not moving to Kansas. That is a great question, and it's a good commercial for the October AWIG meeting. So first of all, Medicare is the health insurance that people over age 65 can access. Now, a lot of people over 65 have other types of healthcare because they might have worked for the state or a different group that pays for their medical insurance. But Medicare is the government insurance that most senior people have. Medicaid is special insurance and sometimes even supplemental income for folks who don't have enough money. So very low income people. And qualifying for a Medicaid approved nursing facility includes a financial review that's a little bit onerous and a financial look back. So for example, if you have folks who are moderately wealthy, but they don't have like enough money for a really nice facility, they cannot gift their assets to you and then immediately go sign up for Medicaid. That will not work. So that's something to think about. And the commercial for October is that the October meeting on October 19th, we're going to have Dana Lawson. She's going to be speaking about Medicare planning because the Medicare open enrollment season is October 15th to December 15th. So if anybody is old enough for Medicare, great, please join us. But if you also have loved ones or you're just like, what even is this program? That's a great session to join us for. And it'll be live and in person at the Carver Library, but it'll also be online. Okay. Other stuff. Oh, your dad worked for this school for 15 years. Yeah, he might have it. Exactly. Okay. It's 3:52. I am getting a little close here. Taxes and savings. Now, nobody said they were interested in this one except for me because I love being in control. And saving strategies and tax deferrals make me feel like I'm in control. So I would encourage you to definitely tax deferral, look at this page and think about which parts are the most important to you. So tax deferral. That's going to be your traditional IRAs, your 401ks, 403bs, 457s. That's your house savings account, all of those different types of accounts. Deferral means that today, Kacie, is taking my paycheck. If I get $100 in my paycheck, today, Kacie is taking $10 of that money and she is deferring it to future Kacie's use. So today, Kacie gets a tax deduction. I'm only taxed on $90 because I am deferring it to future Kacie. Then you wait, and then future Kacie, in the future, when she uses those $10, then I get taxed on it. Well, the whole point of that deferral is assuming that future Kacie is in a lower tax bracket than today Kacie. So today Kacie has $90, so she's paying big taxes. Tomorrow Kacie, she only has $10, so she's paying less taxes. These are, of course, completely made up numbers, but hopefully the message makes sense. The tax management, this is where I kind of got into the weeds on Sarah's question about rebalancing because I love tax loss harvesting, tax gain harvesting, anything about capital gains. So, right, everybody remember, if you bought a share of a stock at and you bought it for $10. And then over time, it's now grown and it's worth $1,000. When you sell it, the amount that you pay the taxes on is the difference between what you bought it for and what you sold it for. Well, if you bought something that's really generic, like an index fund, if there is a time period where the market is down, then you can harvest that loss, is what they call it. You sell the index fund and you buy the other generic. So I sell HEB brand milk and I buy Central Market brand milk. Still milk, still tastes the same. Probably made the same company. But I have made a material change for IRS purposes, and now I get to take the capital loss. Same thing with harvesting. If I'm in a situation where, for whatever reason, this is a low income year for me, so maybe I'm starting a new business, or I took a whole lot of time off because I had a new kid, or whatever, that might be a time to take and sell some of the NVIDIA. Leora, did I hear you quit a job? So if you have a whole lot of gain, but you have lower than the average income, this might be a good time to take some of that capital gain because you're going to pay less in taxes on it. Okay. The other thing about tax management that you can also do, just because we're going into the end of the calendar year when a lot of charitable giving is done, is remember that if you have those regular brokerage accounts, the Kacie Swartz individual account or the Kacie and David joint brokerage account, then you can give highly appreciated stock in lieu of cash. So when I give my annual gift to Planned Parenthood, or I give my annual gift to the Paramount or to Austin Pets Alive or whoever, as long as it's a 501c3 qualified charity, you can give those away, and you are also donating however much your appreciated gain is. And then that charity, when they sell the stock, they don't pay taxes on it because they don't have to. They are exempt from the capital gains tax. So if I give them $100 in the form of one share of Apple or something, they're just as happy as if I gave them a check because they don't pay capital gains tax. But I just got myself out of a capital gains pickle because I didn't have to sell that share to generate the cash to give them. Does anybody have questions about that one?
Question. Is that something that folks use, like, let's say also either in retirement or someone's retiring early and they're trying to keep their income down, like annual income down, I guess either for taxes or for like ACA, what's it called? Not incentives, but not rebates, but help kind of things. Is that another strategy that people use? Like gifting stock rather, or yeah.
I haven't necessarily seen that, but I think that it's possible. What that brings to mind for me is that when people are old enough that they have an IRA that needs a required minimum distribution, so that age is changing over the last few years. So those people might be either 70 years old or up to 73 years old. This year, You don't have to start taking it till you're 73. But anyway, that required minimum distribution is when future Kacie was required to liquidate her $10 so that the government can get some of their taxes. You can meet that requirement by donating straight up cash money out of that IRA. That's called a qualified charitable distribution. So that's what that brings up for me, but I don't know if that's exactly what you were thinking.
Okay. Well, just because I'm trying to learn about those kind of things, about like early retirement, like pre-Medicare, I guess. Yeah. And then a lot of stuff just comes up and it's overwhelming, but it's like all these strategies about trying to keep like annual income down and stuff like that. But I see what you mean, but that's actually really good to know, because then even making an IRA distribution after required to take that can be donated. And then that's a good strategy also, which is also fun because you get to donate.
Well, that's exactly it. If you already are charitably inclined, if there's something that you care about and you are already giving literally $50, I'm too serious about this, you can donate those appreciated shares as long as you have an account that they're in. So if I'm 45 and I have an IRA, I cannot give from my IRA the same way that I'm talking about from the regular brokerage account. But if I have a regular brokerage account and it's got that NVIDIA stock in there, that I can definitely give away. And I am also giving away that capital gain.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
that's the $50 instead of $50 cash. You can
That's
do
exactly it.
$50.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
Thank you.
again, if we think about our financial life, and it's like one of those like Air Force jumper suits that has all the pockets on it that people wear when they're in the airplanes or whatever. Or, I don't know, I'm not in that world. But anyway, my point is, it's I have a lot of pockets in my financial life. I've got cash in some pockets, I've got stock in some pockets, but it's all for me. It's all for me, or for my benefit and for what I care about. So if I'm usually writing a check, and I'm usually giving, nobody writes a check. If I'm actually like doing an online donation is what I probably normally do. It's even easier because when you're on that online donation site, there's usually a button that says, would you like to give stock? And then you just have to go into your own brokerage account, sign the paperwork, shoot it over to their brokerage account, and they send you the same 501c3 qualified charity acceptance letter that says, thank you for your donation of $100. We love you so much. Here's a sticker.
Wow. Thank you. That's going to go on my list for the year.
Yeah, man.
Goals.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yay. That is awesome. The tax-free portion, that is so awesome. Thank you for telling me that, because that makes me so happy. Because all of those different charities absolutely need our money. And when the standard deductions on our taxes went up and people don't get as much for charitable donations because we don't have to itemize anymore, a lot of charities lost a lot of income. So that's really awesome.
Oh, wow. I didn't really think that through.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, it used to be one of those things that, like, if you were really close to hitting the itemized limit, or if you had given $50, but you would get a really big tax savings if you donated $100 or something, then that's where like little dips and drabs of charitable giving would happen. But it doesn't happen anymore because most of us don't have to itemize.
Yeah.
Isn't that stinky?
It is. Well, I'm looking forward to maybe the tax rules being changed and we can start taking our state taxes off and stuff. But
yeah,
or all the house stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, just my love letter to Roth IRAs. Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you. A love letter to Roth IRAs is that the Roth IRA is one of man's greatest gifts to us, because when you put money into a Roth account, or an IRA that's designated as a Roth account, or a 401k that's designated as a Roth account, you don't get a tax deduction in the year you do it. Fine. However, it grows tax-free forever. You can access it with no required minimum distribution later in life. It will pass to your heirs tax-free and with no required minimum distribution. And the dollars that you put into the Roth IRA, because you did not receive a tax deduction on them, are accessible as a backup emergency fund. You cannot go wrong. The only time that you should not do the Roth IRA is if you are a high enough income earner that you will heavily receive benefit from getting that tax deduction for making a traditional contribution instead. That does not mean you will never get to do a Roth contribution, because then there's also Roth conversions. There's backdoor Roth contributions. There's mega backdoor Roth contributions. There's lots of ways to solve the tax-free contribution puzzle, but it's definitely worth doing the research and doing the work. Thoughts, questions? Anybody have experience with these?
It's me again. I have experience getting confused about those. So is that something that like, will more research help that, or is that something where I should find somebody and try to talk it through or something like that?
You definitely are going to want you're definitely going to want personalized advice. However, we can go through the generalities today. Which kind are you thinking about?
So about conversions, I guess backdoor conversions. And I was reading about how folks were setting up ladders. like kind of this, so I guess you can only convert so much a year maybe or something, or is that ringing a bell? Because it seems something like then somehow later they were able to, I don't know. I thought it had something to do with a cutoff for converting, and I don't know, it just very much confused me. And I guess like with conversions too, you're taxed the year you convert it, right?
Yes, that is true. I'm going to share some of my finest Canva efforts with all of you.
Ooh.
The regular Roth contribution, backdoor Roth contribution, is first of all, you have to make sure that you don't have any rollover IRAs, traditional IRAs, simple IRAs like laying around in your name. If you have those, then it is in your best efforts to consolidate them into one account. Then,
oh, sorry.
Yeah, what were you thinking?
I was going to ask you a question. Does that include like a rollover 401k that was rolled over into a IRA? Or is that separate because that's a quote unquote rollover IRA, not a traditional IRA?
Nope, they're the same. And the reason they're the same is when it was a 401k, it was held like if you worked at Apple. When it was a 401k, it was Apple's asset. It was Apple's asset. It was like your parking spot in the garage. It had a label on it that said it was for your benefit, but it was Apple's parking garage. It was Apple's 401k account. Once you separate service and you take the money out and you put it into a rollover IRA, now it is your responsibility. Apple has said, this is not my money anymore. But even though it's not in your name still, because it has to be in for your benefit, but you should not own it outright. Because if you remove it from that tax sheltered egg, then it creates the taxes that the IRS is trying to get us to pay when we do like an R&D. So that's why you hold it at Fidelity or Schwab or Vanguard or wherever. But you'll see, if you look at the title, it says Fidelity Rollover IRA for the benefit of Kacie Swartz. Okay? Because you still don't technically own it. It's an asset of Fidelity, again, for your benefit, but that you've removed your employer.
Thank you. That helps.
Mm-hmm. So then what you do, if you want to do a backdoor Roth contribution, that's what this slide is for. If you want to just do a regular conversion, what you'll do is you'll look at that IRA, and if there's $1,000 in there, let's use a bigger number. If there's $100,000 in there, you have to look at that 100,000 and think, okay, if I'm looking at my real taxes for this year, and my income is, I'm a single person and my income is $50,000, then I am going to pay 12% in taxes. But if I'm comfortable paying the 22% on the money I convert, then I can convert, I don't know, about 50,000 of that money. That money is all going to be taxed at 22%, but it's now going to be $50,000 in a Roth IRA for the rest of my life. How many years does it need to be invested where I will make up whatever the taxes were? And then you're kind of guessing, right? Like on what's the return? You're guessing on how long am I going to leave the money in there before I need it? But still, those are educated guesses.
Yeah, so the closer you are to distribution age, the less benefit it would be, probably.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So frequently, and you can find these calculators online too. Frequently, when I run these for folks who are over age 60, it's not worth it because there comes a point where you have Social Security and maybe you have pensions or any other, or maybe like you have a younger spouse that's going to keep working. If your income is over like a certain amount of money, those Roth conversions are going to just add to your tax burden. So you might as well just have taken, because you're only going to, like in that case, like maybe you're planning to live 30 or 40 years, the taxes paid on a giant conversion may not be made up by the amount of tax-free growth you could have had. So there's a bit of a gamble because nobody knows how long we're going to live and nobody knows what the returns are going to be, but it can be, it's a much safer gamble if you're super young or if you have a very low income year.
Okay.
And by super
That
young,
is-
I mean under 50.
That is really helpful. That helps so much rather than like all the stuff that was swimming in my head. Yeah, thank you.
You are welcome. Leora, is your hand up? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I love it. Keep
I have a
going.
follow-up question on this because this has always been pretty confusing for me.
Mhm.
Where's the taxable event where there's a 22% tax hit?
What a great question. You guys tell me, am I sharing the key financial data at the moment? I don't know
You're
if I
sharing
am.
backdoor Roth contribution.
Yeah, which I do love. I stand by it. But let me share this little baby. This is our key financial data document. It gets updated every single calendar year. We buy this from an online vendor, but it's on our website. So if anybody wants this thing, I use it constantly. If you are the kind of person that wants to look at your tax brackets all the time, which I am. Okay. So where I'm going with that is, remember, first of all, I had to tell some 62-year-old clients the other day that our tax system is a tiered tax system. So let me start there. The first $11,000, $11,600 that a single person makes is taxed at 10%. The next amount from $11,601 to $47,150 is taxed at 12%, right? It's only the dollars you earn over $47,151 to $100,525 that's taxed at 22%. That's a huge jump, right? The where I'm going with this analogy is like, let's say you earn $100,000 as at your day job, but you've got a rollover IRA sitting there at Fidelity and it's got $300,000 in it. Well, if you converted the whole $300,000 at once, $300,000 will be taxed as ordinary income because it was yesterday Kacie that received the tax deductions. So today Kacie has to pay the bill. So if I converted the whole $300,000 plus my regular salary of $100,000, I now have a total income of $400,000. My max tax bracket now is going to be 35%. Don't do that unless I'm like 25 years old and I have like my whole life ahead of me to remake the money on it. What's more likely is I earn $100,000, I have a $300,000 IRA. Maybe I convert another $100,000 because the taxes from 22% to 24%, who cares? Who cares? Especially if I'm under 50. In this story, I'm now going to have to claim $200,000 of income, but $100,000 of it just went into a Roth IRA that will never be taxed again in my life and has all those other benefits I talked about, especially because the regular contribution to a Roth, if I was just to do it like every single year, is only $7,000. So basically, I just made like more than 10 years worth of contributions at one time. Does that answer your question? I don't know if it did.
So the tax event is, yeah, I was asking what the actual tax event was. Is the tax event?
It's the transfer of money from the IRA to the Roth IRA.
Okay, and that's because the starting point in this scenario was a traditional IRA.
Mm-hmm. It was a traditional IRA, or it was a 401k or a 403b, anything where it was money that when you saved it, you received a tax deduction.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because remember,
but if you just did a Roth 401k, and then it doesn't make any sense to like move anything.
Nope, that's a great point. Because if you were doing a Roth 401k, you were not receiving the tax deduction. And when you leave that employer, that Roth 401k will become a rollover Roth account. It will stay Roth dollars.
Right. So there's no conversion anyway.
Nothing necessary. You already did it.
Well, mine hasn't changed yet. It's still a Roth 401k. So is that it's just gonna stay there unless I decide to do something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Do you have a personal Roth IRA somewhere?
No.
Okay. So if you wanted those Roth dollars to leave your former employer, you would need to just open a receiving account at Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, whoever.
Okay.
That would be your name Roth account. So if I opened a Kacie Swartz Roth account at Schwab, then I would go into my 401k provider's website and I would say, I have separated service. I am terminated here. Please give me my money. Where is it going? It's going from this Roth 401k to the Roth IRA. Like you're just handing over responsibility.
If there are no fees and it doesn't simplify my finances, there's no reason to move it, right?
Yes, exactly. The only reason that I would potentially move it is if the investment venue is super limited, like if you don't have very good investment choices, or if there is a separate fee system for people who are in the 401k but not working there anymore.
Right.
So sometimes they will add on like maintenance fees because you're not contributing to the account.
Yeah.
And as a reminder,
I talked to them about that.
Awesome. Yeah, but that's a reminder for anybody that doesn't know that. If you separate service and you still have a 401k somewhere, like the Apple example earlier, I cannot put money in my Apple 401k after I stop working at Apple. Just FYI. Thoughts, questions, anything?
Nice.
If it's best to do Roth conversions before 60, should a 60-year-old be contributing to a Roth 401k at work? Dana, what a great question. The answer is very specific based on your own income and your own time until you plan to use the dollars. So once again, looking at these tax rates. These are subjective. This is a subjective decision because you have to guess what the future tax rates are going to be. But from a historical perspective, the average tax rate of 24%, or like the middle of the tiers here, that's a super low rate on a historical perspective. So if you assume that tax rates are going to go up in the future and you're 60 years old and you know that you're going to have Social Security, you know you're going to have an RMD from an IRA in the future, I would be piling my money into a Roth 401k. Unless I'm way up here in the earnings where it's definitely worth like if I'm right at a tier change. Like if I earned 191,951 and that money is all going to be taxed at 32%, if I put 30,500 because I'm 60 years old, right? Like if you're over 50, that's the IRA, that's the 401k or 403b contribution limit. That 30,500, I would be saving 8% because I know that that money is going into the traditional 401k and therefore is a dollar for dollar deduction on my payroll income, right? Does that part make sense? Dana, what do you think? Cool. Okay, thanks, Dana. But if you're in the middle of one of these brackets and it doesn't make a big difference, I would definitely do the Roth. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this guy. I'm going to go back to the slideshow.
Kacie, I just want to point out that it looks like about 10 more minutes left.
We have 10 minutes. Okay, does anybody have questions? Does anybody want to talk about something we haven't covered? Because what I was heading to next was growing wealth, which I think is what everybody wants to talk about. And of course, we have 10 minutes left. Hopefully, we've covered a lot of this. Okay, great. So the main thing with growing wealth that I just want to reiterate, and probably you guys already know this because you are, again, a self-selecting group of people that is at this meeting on a Saturday afternoon. But allocating across asset classes is very personal and very subjective. Do your research wherever you are investing, Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, whoever. A lot of those places have great research on their websites. So you can kind of see what are the different asset classes. They will often have like star rankings or gold ribbons for good funds, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times those may or may not be useful. Oh, let me get back to that link in a sec. But they will give you some information about which of the different investments they think are useful. And again, I'm coming at that, I'm so sorry because I did not think about individual stocks. I'm coming at that from a mutual fund and ETF, exchange traded fund perspective, because that's my personal preference. Individual stocks, they also have great research, but I will leave it to the experts to decide like what you should be looking for there. Leora, the link to the 2024 key financial data is on the Black Barn website under education, under client materials. But we can also send it to everybody after this because it's awesome. Portfolio management, how and when to rebalance. We kind of talked about that. Defining your exit strategy. This is back to that whole like buying is research, selling is emotion. You have to decide to yourself. You have to decide for yourself how much growth in this particular position will trigger a sale for me. Is it double? Is it triple? Is it whatever, right? And then, oh man, there's an error and everything. Then stick to it. The discipline is what's super hard. And sometimes that's what's a commercial for a financial advisor, is it's a lot easier when it's not your own money. Because when it's your own money, it's very easy to say, I just want to keep riding this NVIDIA train. Everybody ignore the typo in updating. But updating your plan as your life changes. If you're getting huge raises at work, but also you're now part of like, let's say the senior executive group at your office, where if there's a merger, you're definitely going to get fired, then you probably don't want to be doubling down on the same stock of the company you work at, right? So you may not want to be holding all of those RSUs. As those things vest, you might want to be like, get out of it, sell it, because you don't necessarily want to own a ton of the same stock as where you work. Just things along those lines. Also, if you're not able to stomach the same level of risk because maybe you are now on one income, or for whatever reason, you just can't lose money, then you might want to update your investment portfolio. And then the last thing there is budgets, right? So making a budget, sticking to it, revising it as needed. I am a huge fan of pay yourself first, which basically is go through your bills, automate the payments for all of the important stuff, your mortgage, your utilities, all of that stuff. But also with your paycheck, set up a recurring transfer to your 401k or to your Simple or whatever. Then do that even before the money hits your bank account. So does anybody else have input on how they have stuck to a budget, or if budget's kind of a dirty word. I don't love the word budget, but I do enjoy seeing where all my money goes. So what's everybody else's take on that?
I used to be a personal trainer, and it's kind of reminds me of like tracking your food. Like, I don't want to track my food forever, but it is just like interesting to see where things are going and what your percentages look like. But I started out with, I forget what it was called. They switched over to Credit Karma, but that budgeting app that showed you everything. And I like doing that. I did that for like a year. And then when it switched to Credit Karma, I didn't want to do it. But I do still see my monthly expenses, and I just don't try as hard. I don't categorize or anything. But yeah, I've enjoyed it actually a lot.
Yeah, I agree. No, I appreciate your point of view, because that's a great outlook. Like, not using it as a punishment tool, but more like an informational tool. That's absolutely where I would start. And that's exactly what personal trainers and dietitians have told me in the past too, is just start by understanding where it's all coming from and where it's all going, and then make changes if they're needed. Because if you build your financial plan and you've done the big daydreams about owning a llama farm in New Mexico, and you know that you're already saving the right amount for it, then who cares about your budget? Like, if you're spending $20 a day on Torchies, but you can afford it, then like, don't beat yourself up about it. But if you're spending $20 a day on Torchies and you're not making your Roth contributions, or you're not making your 401k contributions, pay some more attention, right? All right, we have 5 minutes left. Does anybody have like huge thoughts? Anything that you want to share?
I have another question, and just so I can understand this in my brain. So there's different types. So there's a personal account. Okay, it's talking about investing. Personal account, a workplace account, and a brokerage account. Did I get that right so far? Possibly?
Yes, absolutely. Keep going.
Okay. And then Roth, there's a $7,000-ish limit to the personal account, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So then when you're investing, say that you max out your personal, that 7,000, and then you max out your 401k or whatever. For the brokerage, is that the opposite of Roth, right? So that can't be Roth at all. I'm not sure.
It cannot be Roth.
Okay. Interesting.
But there is no amount, like no contribution limit to how much you can put in the Kacie Swartz individual brokerage account or the Kacie and David joint brokerage account. There's no limit. There's not like a special tax benefit to putting those dollars away, but it's kind of like saying, oh, I can only put so much into my savings account. You can put however much you want.
Yeah, but that's why you're saying like the backdoor Roth is so amazing.
It is.
Cool.
Because there's an income constraint. The Roth the Roth account was invented after the traditional IRA account. The traditional IRA account is older. But then in like 1999, Senator Roth, out of West Virginia, I think, he said there should be something for lower income people who won't benefit from a tax deduction. They don't do this because they don't need the tax deduction. Let's do something special for them. So that's where the Roth IRA came from. People started actually using it. The tax code was written as with these loopholes in it. And now if your income is over those income constraints, as long as you put the money in a traditional IRA and don't take the tax deduction, you can just immediately transfer it to a Roth account. Easy peasy.
That's cool.
Guys, I really appreciate you sitting here with me and talking about financial planning, because it is my absolute passion. We did not get into the sociological elements because we had some real practical stuff to do. However, if anybody wants to like get coffee and talk about it, I'm really into it. That's all I had. Thank you. I appreciate your time. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Kacie, so much for leading us through that. That was so fun. Thank you, everybody who brought questions and who brought responses to questions. That is what makes this group so special. And every month that we get to have a meeting is a month that fills my heart with joy. I am not 100% sure if we have our October meeting on the calendar, but it is in the works. Oh yeah, it's our Medicare meeting is in October. We are putting together the calendar for the rest of the year and trying to get ahead of things for next year as well. So we have some really awesome people who are going to come in on some really great topics, you guys. But certainly, as you may already know, we are volunteer run, volunteer led. We always need volunteers to come in and lead the discussion. And we're always trying to figure out what topics will resonate the most with you all. So reach out to myself, Lori, Kacie, Gwen, who's usually on the call, but is not today, because we want to hear what you all want to talk about. And if you have any questions, just reach out. Kacie had her email up there. I mean, just put, a WIG member in the subject line, and I guarantee you she will respond to every email that she gets, because that's just her style. So
Yep.
Hope everybody has a really great weekend and hope to see you at the next meeting in October. Oh, Kay says one more thing.
Yeah, Jessica, thank you so much for catching the online meeting about Medicare was listed for tomorrow. That's my bad. I put it on the meetup calendar incorrectly. It is October 19th at 2:30. They are on the calendar. We have not sent out the announcement, the one that goes to your emails, but they are on the website, the meetup website. If you log on, you can certainly register now. We'd love it.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of the weather and we'll see you in October.
Bye, y'all.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for
You
coming.
too. See you then.
Sarah or
Yes.
Lori? Yeah,